So the Doctor has yet another new sonic screwdriver for this new incarnation, this new regeneration played by Ncuti Gatwa. So yes, only about 2 or 3 weeks or so after the 14th Doctor's screwdriver made its screen debut, it's already been retired and replaced by a new and improved and upgraded model. Or, well, maybe that's up for debate, but we'll get into that in the video, because yes, this will be my thoughts on the new sonic screwdriver for the 15th Doctor for Ncuti Gatwa. Very, very exciting to have a new one. I do hope the toy version will be available to pre-order soon. I have no inside knowledge on that whatsoever, but hopefully soon. But yes, with that aside, let's talk about the design itself, because I've definitely got some things to say. I guess the first thing to say here actually is that I was very fortunate enough to be down in London when they were showing the actual prop off for the first time on the day after the Giggle, Sunday the 10th of December. That was really nice. They were doing this thing down there on the South Bank with this big sort of sculpture of the 14th Doctor's face and the 15th Doctor's face made out of like recycled computer components or something like that, and you could sort of see the outline of their faces. It was a little bit sort of hazy, but you could sort of see like the outline of their faces in that sculpture, so that was a nice piece by itself. And then a day or two later, once the Giggle had aired, they added both the 14th Doctor's Sonic in a glass case and the 15th Doctor's Sonic also in a glass case for fans to go and see. I believe that they're gone now, that the whole thing was only lasting over the weekend, and the Sonics were only there, I think, for a couple of hours on the Sunday, so sadly you can't still go and see these, but hopefully, you know, there'll be some further exhibits in the future, some more permanent exhibits perhaps, or maybe they'll take them around to conventions and things, I don't know. But yes, that was very surreal to see a new Sonic, and for a moment I thought that actually maybe that would be where it was unveiled for the first time, full stop, because no one really knew what was going to happen with the new Sonic. In actual fact, not long after the Giggle had aired, they released some photos of Ncuti with the Sonic and some photos of the Sonic by itself, and a little video of him sort of playing around with it as well, where he kind of gives a little bit of insight into the design of it. There's one thing in particular where there's like a ring in the middle of Gallifreyan text, which apparently translates as an old Randan proverb, which I think is the sharpness of the tongue defeats the sharpness of the warrior. I think I've remembered that right. There we go. So a very sort of Doctor-ish sentiment there. Very, very nice, and obviously linking to Gatwa's own heritage as well. Lovely, lovely touch there. But yes, this Sonic, now we've kind of moved on from that. What do I think of this design? And the answer is, I just don't know really. Like, I saw those photos on social media after the Giggle had aired, and I was just like, oh, okay, that's the new Sonic, is it? Like, that does not look like any other Sonic we've had in the past whatsoever. You know, people have had problems with different Sonic designs in the past, like with Jodie's, for instance, or things like that. But I think compared to this, what they've done here in terms of the approach they've taken and the direction they've gone with it, you know, having like a Sonic with a curved handle made out of Sheffield steel with little crystals in it and stuff, that's nothing compared to what they have done. You know, for better or for worse, I'm not sort of saying, you know, that immediately makes it a bad design, and I think it's just a very different take on the Sonic. Very, very different to what we've seen in the past, like I say. You know, it's much more like a television remote. I think that's the thing that people kind of latched onto, and there have been various little funny memes and things online, it being like a Sky remote or whatever. And it is, you know, these people aren't wrong. I completely agree with that assessment. You know, in the videos and the clips we've seen, because there are some clips, I think, from the Christmas episode in the behind-the-sscenes video of the Sonic, you know, where Ncuti's got it there and he's kind of pointing it forward, like a door or whatever. It literally is just like you're turning on your TV. Yeah, I don't know. I think this Sonic is a very weird direction to go. As we've said, very, very different. You know, we're abandoning that sort of tubular pointy stick kind of whole thing that's been going on with the Sonic basically ever since, you know, it was conceived back in the 60s, not like a kind of pen or a pen light or a torch or whatever. You know, that has very much been the aesthetic and the shape and the design that we've had in the past. And this just, you know, looked at that and says, no thank you, we're going to do something completely different. It's much more like a TV remote or a futuristic scanner or something. You know, this is something that you might expect an alien to have in a futuristic story, like Jabe's scanner in The End of the World. It's very much more like that. So having said all that and having kind of outlined all the ways that the Sonic is different to previous designs. What do I actually think? Does it make it a failure? Does it make it a bad design? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think this Sonic, yes, it's very different, but I don't hate the design. I think it's quite stylish for what it is. It just doesn't really seem like a sonic screwdriver, and I have seen other people say that as well, that, perhaps if they'd called this something different or introduced another type of sonic device, like with the sonic shades or the sonic trowel or anything like that, maybe that would have gone down better with fans. To be honest, it's one of those things like we've had recently with things like Bi-Generation or this new version of Davros, without the chair and with legs, it's that same idea of taking an iconic Doctor Who thing, an iconic piece of Doctor Who design, or an iconic visual, the regeneration effect, Davros's look and aesthetic and design, and the look and aesthetic of the Sonic as well, and kind of tearing up the rulebook and saying, well, no, we're not going to do the same thing that's been done before, we're going to do something different, we're going to go in our own direction with it, and fair play to them, fair enough to do that. I think with this Sonic, it will take a while to get used to the design, as with any sonic screwdriver, and this is particularly different, as I've already kind of outlined in the video. But at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. It's a different direction. It's one that many people might not particularly like. I think with the idea of it just being a device or a tool or stuff, kind of taking away the whole idea of whether this actually looks or feels like a Sonic, as a thing in its own right, I think it looks quite nice, quite stylish, quite classy. Like the colour scheme they got going there, like the silvers and the kind of golds or bronzes and metallic blues. I do really like that as an aesthetic, as a colour scheme. I think that's really nice. Lots of little lights and stuff on it as well, little buttons, the Gallifreyan text like I mentioned, the purple crystal. And I think the idea is that it is in two halves that can sort of be opened and closed, so you can sort of have it in a closed position where you sort of slide the two halves over each other like a little pocket mirror or something, and then you can also open it out. And I suppose that's the thing about this as well to think about, that in terms of having this in your pockets, it's nowhere near as bulky as previous Sonics, so hopefully it will be nicer for Shooty to have in his pocket and more comfortable to have in his pockets, and also to have in his hand as well, to hold this Sonic. It looks quite nice ergonomically. I think I did see a comment about it being like a bit of a nightmare for left-handed people like myself, because it's been designed with a right-handed person in mind. It's not a symmetrical design. The buttons are in a particular place for right-handed users, so I guess that's a bit of a shame, but sort of, if it makes it easier for Shooty to use, then that's all that matters, really. I think overall on this Sonic, and it does still feel weird to call it a Sonic and to call it a screwdriver and a sonic screwdriver, but yes, I think overall my kind of take on it would be, it's a design that I don't hate as a sort of thing or a prop or a device in its own right, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a Sonic immediately or straight away, and I think it will take time to see it as such. What are your thoughts on the new Sonic, dare I ask? Do you love this? Do you hate it? Do you think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the Sonic? Or maybe you think it's the best thing? I don't know. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this fairly radical redesign? Does it work? Could it work? Whatever you think, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you've got to say. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more stuff like this in the future. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.